Hey everybody, how's it going? It's ya boy, Mark Monkey. God, I should not say shit like that. It just doesn't sound right coming from me. But hey, we're putting something on YouTube, mainly because, well, a lot of things that I'm going to say in this video you can't say on Twitch apparently. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. So, I'm not going to be able to stream tomorrow like I normally do. Usually I do Wednesday mornings. We do a little call in because, hey, if you're new here, first of all, shit, it looks like the YouTube algorithm is a little fucked up, and somehow it actually recommended you something different from what you're usually used to hearing, which is probably some weird right-wing pipeline from Destiny all the way to Gavin McGinnis. But yeah, either way, if you're new here, why not like, comment, and subscribe? Like, let me know how you like this sort of thing, and if you want me to do it even more. I don't know. Could be fun, but hopefully under better circumstances than me having to talk about some really dumb shit. Let's be totally honest here. But if you're not, hey, cool. I'm glad to have you. It's good to see you, my Twitch peoples, my very small YouTube peoples. I don't know. I'm gonna direct whoever wherever. So let's go ahead and get into this very weird discourse about the word cracker. Kill me. I don't even feel like we should have to entertain this. And at first, I just thought it was really silly and wasn't going to add up to much. But now I'm genuinely worried that this is going to ruin the platform that we all know and love. And it's even in ways that a lot of the debate bros who were pining for this bullshit and taking the bait of a lot of right-wing provocateurs, of course, thank you for that, liberals, every single fucking time. Never learn, do you? How this is actually going to affect you negatively too. Well, let's get into this, okay? Let's start. Part 1. The history of cracker. There are various different versions that have been talked about for the history of cracker as a racial slur. I'm going to say cracker a lot, so that's why this is on YouTube and not Twitch. If that bothers you, why are you watching the video in the first place? There's been several different versions that I've heard, and none of them depicted it as all that disparaging a term, and the closest you can get is some classes views, I guess. The earliest etymology for its being used as a derogatory remark dates back to the times of Shakespeare and pirates. In fact, it's a reference to pirates being salty crackers as they sailed the sea. Seawater has salt in it. It's salt water, thus salty. You fucking get it. Like cracker. There's been other references, such as crackers being the overseers of slaves. The term cracker referring to the whips, the sound the whips make while they're cracking on the slaves. Not exactly something disparaging against white people. Unless you just don't want to be reminded of our connection to slavery, then, well, damn, that sucks for you, doesn't it? The closer reference to our time was popularized by George Jefferson, where he referred to his white neighbors as crackers. Of course, this is on the TV show The Jeffersons. I fail to see how this is an issue, but apparently now it is. Hardly anything other than meaning that you're a white person that carries himself as being better than black people based on the history of segregation in the US. Again, if you don't like being reminded that white people owned slaves and persisted segregation after it was ended, it's not exactly something all that personally insulting, so let's see if we can figure it out in part 2. The history of racial slurs. Okay, so let's talk about slurs that actually have an impact. This This is where I'll censor myself because I'm not an idiot, nor do I want to actually say damaging racial slurs, even if YouTube allowed me to. The comparison often made when talking about cracker is to the N-word, for some reason. Let's talk about why this is a big dumb wrong poopy-headed idea. First of all, the etymology of the N-word is intrinsically linked to blackness, a concept we'll talk about next, alongside of whiteness. Don't worry, we'll get there. As it originates from the Latin word, along with other Romance languages, for black. Attached to the N-word is its use to demean black slaves as stupid and lesser than, which is bad enough, but what followed along with it was actually treating them like they were lesser than through violence and further subjugation. Okay, so what about the other racial slurs? Well, K slur for Jewish people was also accompanied by violence and subjugation. What about many racial slurs for Asian people? A racist's favorite people to bring up to negate the accusations of their racist ideas being racist while not realizing they're still being racist. Yep, you guessed it. Violence and subjugation through exploiting their labor to build the railroads, general slavery, numerous preemptive wars in their countries, and also internment during World War II. Are you starting to notice a theme here? Yeah, there's a whole lot of those slurs being used to demean while enacting real violence and subjugation against the people. Is that true of white people on cracker? No. Oh, wait, I hear you from the back shouting at me. What about the Irish? Yeah, Irish were enslaved in the U.S. and treated poorly for a much shorter period of time. And yes, they had their own slurs against them, one of which was a derivative of the racial slur used for black people. But sure, that existed for a time. Then something happened after a very short time, and that brings us to part 3, the creation of white people. Let's start this off very simple. White people aren't an actual people. It's a designation that you're in the in-group of power in this country. It doesn't really have anything to do with the color of your skin as much as whether you're accepted for now. If it were, the Irish, Italians, and now even people of Latin descent would not be considered white. And yet, we have people being fully accepted by white supremacists such as Enrique Tarrio, Nick Fuentes, Andy No, Tim Pool, and many more. None of them would classically be considered white under the one-drop rule, but they're all too happy to align themselves with white supremacist assholes so long as they're going against their common enemy, which is apparently Muslims, trans people, and, well, let's be honest, low-key the Jews.
Mac says if I take 1 hour to cook a batch of cookies and Cookie Monster has 15 ovens, working 24 hours a day, every day for 5 years, how long does it take Cookie Monster to make 6 million batches of cookies? I don't know, that's a good question. Certainly, oh, no. It doesn't really sound correct to me. Wait a second. It takes 1 hour to cook a batch of cookies, and you have 15 ovens, probably in 4 different kitchens, right? Doing 24 hours a day, every day for 5 years. How long would it take you to make 6 million? I don't know. It certainly wouldn't be 5 years, right?
Like, there's a lot of Holocaust denial quietly baked into that cake, and it's not always that quiet. So what does this mean? It means that white is amorphous and not really attached to your genetics at all. At least not anymore. You see, we pasty salty Americans done created ourselves 2 peoples through slavery of white and black people. We created black people through our callous and reckless treatment of them after purchasing them in Africa. Who we bought them from doesn't really matter as much as our treatment and lack of care, though. Destiny. You know, that's a white supremacist talking point, right? Like, you used to argue against that against white supremacists and race realists. You did that. I remember. I watched those videos. I'm sure it's nothing. It's fine. Whatever. I'm sure it's not exposing some weird further shift to the right or abandonment of all your supposedly progressive principles or anything. Due to us overpacking them in the bottom of ships, they were forced to shit where they slept. Often this caused famine and sickness along with suicides due to the conditions. All the while, we didn't catalog where they came from, let alone who they were. When the ones who lived made it on the long trip to the American colonies and other places, to be perfectly honest, they were given new anglicized names, removing them of the last bit of heritage they had from wherever they were from in Africa. A continent, by the way, that has over 50 countries and hundreds of different cultures and tribes. The robbing of heritage and history is what was part of the creation of what we would designate as black people in America. A people with no land, brought here to be enslaved and mistreated through actual violence and subjugation. Hey, there it is again. It's weird that that keeps on popping up. We got the black, not the word that we used, slaves, but how can we show that we're even more not like them and even more human than they are? Well, we did that by calling ourselves white. It was nothing more than to display our power and allow people into this controlling in-group that was considered above them. Are we starting to get it yet? No, of course not. Let's seal this in the present day by talking about how these things are used now. 4. No one is really called cracker. Okay. Let's do this. Let's say you're a white kid growing up in a majority black area. You're kind of spazzy, tall, gangly, and your parents never really looked into whether you had ADHD or motor skill issues despite teacher recommendations. This is what's called an easy target. This is also about me. But let me help to show that this isn't just like me just talking about me. There's an expansive argument here. Bear with me. Let me know when something sounds really familiar. Or if it doesn't, let you know that there's plenty of people who had similar experiences as I did and walked away much, much different. I was picked on by everyone. My inability to control my executive functions and emotions didn't exactly help from drawing the attention of kids looking to be cruel. Some of the kids that beat me up were black. Yeah. Did race come up while insulting me? Absolutely. But they never called me cracker. I have never been called cracker. I got called white boy. I've talked to white people all over the country too who have had similar experiences, and if they were called cracker, it was rare. They were called white boy. Sorry, this is very male focused, but that kind of bullying is kind of what I know, so bear with me. Now, what's cool about me is the few friends I had weren't all white. I was introduced to many different perspectives from an early age. One of my earliest friends was a Filipino boy, also named Marc. He spelled it wrong, but you know, nobody's perfect. I was also close to a kid who lived near me named Ben. Me and Ben connected over the fact that our parents wouldn't let us watch Beavis and Butthead. But that didn't stop us from reenacting episodes on the bus to and from school. We'd hang out at his place every now and then, except when his dad was there. His mom was very nice. His dad, didn't like me. I didn't get it until my mom picked me up by surprise and said I couldn't go over there anymore. Turns out his dad didn't really care for white people. That's the only experience I have ever had of that kind of bigotry, too. My mom explained as it was his individual problem. And because my family was close to many families of many types, I didn't really internalize it and see that sort of treatment in every black person I knew, including the family of my now wife. As time went on, I ventured into adulthood. I would have several experiences with black people calling me white boy in a derogative way, but I never really felt anything more than taken aback by it. It hurt my feelings, and not even that much. But from 19 to 21, I had my edgy boy phase where I was hanging out with friends or band members. One who was Jewish, who grew up in the white suburb of Fenton, and we're very fond of the N word. I said it too, and thought it was funny, even encouraged by another friend I had a love hate relationship with who was black and would later grow up to be a gun toting Trump supporter. Weird how that works, but oh well. What's interesting is the contrasted conversation I had at this time. We had in depth conversations about anti Semitism, even going to a known KKK area to ghost hunt. Look up Kahakta. Just, I know it's stupid. Bear with me. But that sparked some conversations that stick with me regarding subjugation and the anger behind it. Even though he was definitely racist against black people, I would definitely have this confirmed when I started dating my now wife, and he referred to her as looking like the predator because she had braids. The conversations on anti Semitism painted a picture for me about what it was like to be marginalized in this country. He wasn't sensitive to others' subjugation, but he was sensitive to his own, and his fear when discussing it was always based in the threat of violence. Flash forward to dating a black woman, having some very uncomfortable conversations that I've never had with anyone, being an adult, watching the degradation of my city and the water crisis take hold, and you start to notice some things. At no point in my treatment as being white boy did I feel any fear of violence, no fear of subjugation, and no threat to my life. The closest I ever got was when someone threw a glass perfume bottle at my head in the movie theater because I kissed my spouse before the lights went down. And that wasn't because I was white. It was because my spouse wasn't. Inherent in every use of the N-word is a threat of violence. Whether it's someone writing it off and normalizing it to create an unsafe space for black people, or leading to a literal hate crime of violence, it serves that purpose, and that is its intended purpose. Every use of a slur against marginalized people paints a picture of violence against them to come, even if it doesn't come to pass. That threat is not something any white person has felt about their whiteness. They could be queer and feel it, sure, but because they're white? Come on, give me a break. If you're comfortable using stupid, idiot, dumb, insane, crazy, or anything like that, let alone the R word, you're saying things that have more of an impact on actually marginalized people than someone calling you a pasty, mayo-faced, cracker-ass Kyle or Karen. Still have the world as your safe space and won't feel unwelcome on entire platforms ever. It's probably because we own and run these platforms. Like, let's just go ahead and take a peek at Twitch's board of directors and see. Yeah. Part 5. The conclusion. Hey, look, we're fucking done. Was that so hard? So here we are. You still feel like being called a cracker means anything. I've heard somebody say that this is an argument that we ought not use derogatory terms towards people, so immutable characteristics, which, yeah, of course. Here's the thing, though. What is an insult that we use that isn't just that? On this platform, it's okay for us to insult people's intelligence, call them bitches, and that goes without mentioning terms that shouldn't be allowed in here, such as R slur for neurodivergent people or the T slur for trans people. So, where does Twitch stop with their TOS? If it's not meant to protect marginalized people, but instead they're going to go all lives matter and treat everyone like everything is equal and the same, we're legitimately going to have a tough time talking about anything at all, let alone your precious debate panels and debate bros. That's all I'm saying. You like your dunks. It's going to be very difficult to do when you can't really use any insults against them. The problem with this is less about our favorite lefty streamers being banned and more a question of if this is included, where does the line get drawn? How long before we find out? And if we want to also complain about how marginalized voices get pushed off these platforms, how does this protection of the status quo help that? It doesn't. And to the other questions, we don't. Until we do. So I guess what I'm saying is, sure, gloat if you must. But much like how you've shut up about how well Biden is doing versus our boy Bernie ever since the election has been over, when the shit hits the fan, you're gonna shut up about it then too, and you'll feign outrage at the very thing we warned you about. This isn't going to work how you think it is. Especially since you'll be subject to the same rules we know you like your edgy comedy. That goes bye-bye with it. So maybe you need to grab some hot soup, sit down for a minute, soak it up just a little bit, and just kind of think about it a little bit, my fellow cracker.
Hey, it's Mark and Eli. I hope you're doing well. Hope you liked the video. If you liked it, why don't you like, comment, and subscribe? My child may stop picking on me. Uh, uh.